Hello, Frizzle Fleet! So on Goodreads, there's kind of two different ways you can tell if a book is popular, two different definitions of the word. One is if the book has a lot of ratings, if it has so many readers. And the other is if it has a high average score. So right now on my Goodreads Want to Read list, there is the perfect competition of these two phenomena. Because if we sort my Want to Read list by star rating, what pops up at the top is 𝐂𝐸𝐻𝐿 with a 4.6. However, this book is also the one with the least ratings at around 20 right now. So it has very few readers, but a very high average rating. On the flip side, the book with the most ratings on my TBR right now is Frankenstein, with about 1.5 million ratings on Goodreads. But also, if you're looking at the books that have the lowest average ratings on this list, Frankenstein's right there around the bottom. So of course we must put these books head to head. One with a lot of ratings but a low average rating, and one with not many ratings but a high average rating, and see which one I like better, what's my experience with them, and here is the video today. I'm going to be reading these two books. So let's get started. I've started 𝐂𝐸𝐻𝐿, the one with a very high rating and very few readers, and I'm loving it, which is such a good outcome so far. We have a Prince 𝐿 and a little street rat girl, 𝐂𝐸𝐿. And right now we have two timelines going on, one when they're kids and one when they're adults. And as adults, 𝐂𝐸𝐿 is now working for a prestigious bank, and she shows up at the palace and gets in a little bit of banter and flirting with the prince. Now, 𝐿 is hilarious, and not like because he has a sense of humor, but because he's just such a himbo. So 𝐿 only cares about fashion and where his next lover is coming from. He also enjoys fine wine. He's just such a playboy. And the opening of having him introduced by like trying to pick out his outfit and being like, no, I'm not sure if I should do the purple one. Let's try on the yellow one again. Maybe the purple one. No, the yellow matches my advisor's clothes better. It's just like such a great bit of characterization, especially in contrast to how much he cares about the business meeting he's about to go to with the banker, which is like nothing, until he realizes the banker is a hot lady, and then all he cares about is how hot she is. But things have taken a little turn as they're like, hey, you look familiar, and they realize that they know each other from some disastrous incident on the streets in their youth, which I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm sure the past timeline is gearing up for, and I'm very excited about it, and I ship them. I don't know if this is a romance. I don't really read book blurbs. I think it's funner to go into the book knowing barely anything about it, but like in order for him to be worthy of her awesomeness and competence, he's gonna have to have a lot of character development, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm also curious to see how 𝐂𝐸𝐿 ended up with the bank, or even if she is. I'm starting to suspect maybe it's a con. We'll see. Yeah, the book is just really well written and fun, and I'm thoroughly enjoying myself with 𝐂𝐸𝐻𝐿. So I'm about halfway through with 𝐂𝐸𝐻𝐿, and I am very much liking it. So far, the low sample size of people who love a book is going very well. This book has pretty solidly settled into two timelines. In the past, we always have 𝐂𝐸𝐿 narrating, and in the present, we always have 𝐿. So in the past, we have little kid street rat 𝐂𝐸𝐿 getting up into all of her clever shenanigans. And along the way, she strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crown prince 𝐿. And then I've gotten to see how that's leading to two things, and seeing those two things of one, her getting acquainted with the very fancy bankers. So she really is a banking employee in the end. That wasn't just a con. And then two, the disaster that unfolds because of her friendship with the prince, and some very traumatizing events that go down for both of them that severs their friendship until they've reunited in the present, where now 𝐿 and 𝐂𝐸𝐿 are part of a delegation going to a neighboring kingdom to negotiate some mercenary contracts kind of things. And this book has gotten so interesting. This is one of the things that I'm starting to really like about some self-published books, is that they more tend to genre bend than traditionally published books, just because it's harder to get a book published if you're not in one genre box. And we see that as they go to another city. And 𝐿 and 𝐂𝐸𝐿's hometown, it's like very early on the cusp of an industrial revolution. They've just gotten muskets, okay? And then they journey to another city, and that city has like skyscrapers and elevators and apparently like LEDs, but still people get around with like horse-drawn wagons dragons. And it's just such like an interesting and puzzling blend of technology. And at first I was thinking like, this doesn't fit. And like, yeah, it doesn't. And the book explains it because, wow, these worlds, it turns out, are like post-apocalyptic. And it's been hinting at this the entire book, and it just went right over my head until we were confronted with this old ancient city that still somehow has some electricity running in its veins because it has a very old generator. And then this book is slowly shifting its plot. A lot of the political machinations why they want these mercenaries, this and that, is because their generator is running out. And they want to journey to these ruins that are apparently in the middle of a nuclear fallout zone to try to see if they can find a replacement generator because they don't know how electricity works or how to make it. And I'm incredibly invested right now in both storylines. I love 𝐂𝐿𝐿 as a child street rat, slowly making new decisions for her life. And I love the plotline of Dojon because he starts out the book completely spoiled prince, and now he's like in the middle of this transformation where as he's on this political delegation, he's starting to take his duties seriously, kind of for the first time in his life. Kind of because he wants to impress 𝐂𝐿𝐿 because he cares so much about her positive opinion of him. And it's kind of really funny because all of his advisors are like, we'll handle the diplomatic things. You don't need to worry your pretty little head about it. And he's like, actually, I would like to command this expedition. And the advisors are like, please don't. And it's super cool. I'm really excited to see where all of these plot lines go. And I'm excited to finish this one up and start Frankenstein. So I finished A Quiet Vengeance, and it definitely ended with a whisper of vengeance. In a way that, to my taste, it felt kind of unresolved. Like the prince was on this journey of becoming not a himbo, of learning how to take care of his kingdom and getting involved in politics and all of that. And then at the end of the book, he doesn't really do anything. Things are just done to him, and then he's like, oh no, my kingdom, whatever. And then 𝐂𝐿𝐿 has been on a journey of gaining power and dishing out her vengeance. And she does both. But she also does both kind of like quietly off screen, and then we get like summaries of what happened after the fact, which just seems so anticlimactic to me and like lame. And then the plot of like the ruins that might have that futuristic technology to get like their generator running again just like never really went anywhere and was also pretty unsatisfying. Part of me not loving the end of this book is also just because like I don't love revenge stories, and yeah, I should have known going into this book that has the word vengeance in the title that that's what was going to happen, but I didn't put it together until we actually got to that part, okay? But like revenge plot lines are so boring and annoying to me. What are you going to do? You succeed in your revenge? Okay, now you're still unsatisfied and unhappy. Or you fail in your revenge. Wow, now you're still unsatisfied and unhappy. Like the only way that a revenge plotline can lead to like a satisfying character arc is if the person like lets go of their feelings of anger and revenge and like grows past it, which is just often not where these plot lines end up going, and I kind of hate them because it feels like such a waste of character energy, and I hate it when characters are angry all the time because it's annoying. And I'll talk more about me not liking revenge plots when I'm talking about Frankenstein, because that also ties in with that book now. But I specifically extra didn't like this one because the vengeance was so quiet, because it felt like it didn't matter even though the entire book was hinging on it, because it was just like off screen. Oh, by the way, you know, I got my revenge. What? So I would give A Quiet Vengeance 3 stars. If I was here only for the world building, this book is truly something special. I would give it 5 stars. This world feels so rich and interesting with like the post-apocalyptic history and all of these warring nations and stuff. Like, it's so well done on all of those levels. But on like a plot and character level, meh, so 3 stars overall for the book. I've now started Frankenstein, and wow, it's a little different than I was expecting. Because what I was not expecting was opening up with a character that was not Victor Frankenstein, or the monster. Instead, we start out with a random guy who is on a voyage to explore the North Pole. And while they are carefully navigating the ice floes, they spot a dog sled chase across the ice, and they pick up the chaser, who is Victor Frankenstein. And after Victor Frankenstein is nursed back to health after nearly dying from exposure on the ice, he tells his tale to our ship's captain. And he starts off with his childhood and slowly goes through his interest in science and then becoming obsessed with creating life. And I do like him as our narrator here because he has a lot of hindsight that he's offering. And there's also such a rich irony of Victor Frankenstein being like, in my past, I struggled with obsession, when like he was found in like a dog sled chase across the Arctic. You think you're not currently struggling with obsession there, Victor? I also like the relationship between the ship captain and Victor Frankenstein because we've gotten that the ship captain's current want is a friend. He can't befriend anyone on the ship, they're too lower class for him. And then here comes Victor Frankenstein, a scientist buddy, but he might be a little crazy. So there's also like stakes in that relationship of, are they going to accept each other and actually become friends? With like Frankensteins and classics in general, I have like two thoughts. One, it kind of feels weird to me as a modern reader to be reading a book that's so concerned with establishing how this story and these words made it to us. Like we can't just have it from the perspective of Frankenstein. We have to start with letters of the ship captain and then a journal of the ship captain and then the journal of the ship captain recording his words. I once had an English teacher that was obsessed with this, and he said that if a book didn't establish how the words got to you, it was bad inherently. Like he argued that Hunger Games was trash because it's written in first person present tense, which is such a hot take that I vehemently disagree with. All of this page time that we spent with like establishing the provenance of the words of this novel is wasted page time, and it's pretty boring. My second thing that's interesting when I read classics is that you can see how many trends that they've started. Like Victor is our prototype mad scientist. I can see like a direct line of descent from Victor Frankenstein to like Jumba from Lilo and Stitch. And I'm excited to see as the book unfolds what tropes have been born in this work. And that's how I'm feeling about the beginning of Frankenstein. I'm about halfway through Frankenstein, and here's the sitch. The monster is real sad because every time he sees another human being, they try to like kill him. He's really not doing too well in this life, and because of that, he's decided that he wants to destroy all of humanity, and most particularly destroy his creator. Meanwhile, Frankenstein's little brother is mysteriously murdered, and Frankenstein's really upset about this, and with next to no evidence, he immediately concludes that it must be his monster, and decides that he is going to destroy the monster. And I was so hoping that Frankenstein would be wrong in this conclusion, that it wasn't actually the monster who had killed the child. But it was. And now it is just revenge plot versus revenge plot. But like Frankenstein's a revenge? No, please stop. Because like what's now? If they succeeded in destroying each other, they'll probably still be sad. If they fail in succeeding each other, they'll still be sad. Like, I don't feel any stakes to this plot. I don't even care which one wins. No, that's not true. I am rooting more for the monster because he's more sympathetic than Frankenstein. But I think revenge conflicts are some of the most boring conflicts of them all. And I'm kind of sick of them because there's just so little room for character development in them, and it's all anger, which is like my least favorite emotion to read about. Everyone's angry at each other and everyone wants to destroy each other and whatever. Another thing that's bothering me about this book is just the old-timey writing style of like seeming lack of focus. Like the creature was spying on this nice family in the woods and we got like an entire chapter aside just about their tragic backstory. Did that become important? No. And I'm like, am I supposed to be interested in this extra backstory we don't need? Meh. It's just too slow-paced and meandering, and the only thing that's left is angry vengeance. So I'm entertained enough to keep going, and part of that is because the fabulous audiobook I'm reading. Here's the exact edition I'm doing with the narrators. They've got 3 of them, and they're all so talented. Highly recommend this particular version if you're looking for a Frankenstein audiobook. I'm really hoping right now that this book subverts something and it doesn't just end up being a revenge plot, but considering we opened the book with them having a chase of dog sleds across the ice over the North Pole, I kind of don't think that their conflict is gonna de-escalate anytime soon, you know? So I finished Frankenstein, and I'm kind of disappointed in it, but also I have some hot takes to share with you. So the ending of this book is all just like the creature and Victor trying to ruin each other's lives repeatedly. I feel like for a character to be interesting, they have to be moving from one state to another, and just like constant, I want to destroy this person is just annoying and boring to me. And that's just like the whole end of the book is they both destroy themselves trying to destroy each other. Oh no, it's a tragedy, like, but one without a lot of character development or depth. Now, while I was reading, I had a great idea of what the ending of Frankenstein should be instead, and I love it. At one point, The creature says to Victor, "I'll see you on your wedding night." And it's supposed to be like a threat, like I'm going to kill you and your bride on your wedding night. But you know, that sure sounds like a marriage proposal to me, and this started the gears in my brain turning because Frankenstein would be so much better if it pivoted from this angry revenge story into like a monster romance. Hear me out here. Victor and the creature would work so well together as a couple. We look at what does Victor want in a romantic partner, because he's quite obsessed with his Elizabeth, and basically the only things he says about why he likes her is because he feels like he owns her, because his parents have given her to him and it's his Elizabeth. Well, you know what? He did create the monster, so they already kind of have that power dynamic. So like Victor will be satisfied. Victor is also like an immature child who's constantly having bouts of mental and physical breakdowns and needs someone to nurse him back to health constantly and do all the household chores. Enter our creature. When has he been happiest in his life? When he's quietly doing household chores for people, and all he really wants is to be taken seriously, is for someone to see him as like a human being. Like, yes, maybe Victor Frankenstein taking the creature seriously starts with, "I think you're a large threat to humanity," but at least he acknowledges that the creature is a thinking, mature threat to humanity, you know? Sounds like an interesting match to me. So we can either have the creature kidnap Frankenstein or Frankenstein kidnap the creature, and they go off and have a Beauty and the Beast type romance, which brings us to the question of who is Beauty and who is the Beast? Well, one of the major themes of Frankenstein is already asking that question of what makes a monster, so it'll just tie in perfectly with the themes and we can play with that throughout the romance. And the best thing about all of this idea is it provides them both with a character arc in this enemies to lovers romance, where they have to change something inside themselves in order to accept the other person as a full loving partner. Because currently, Frankenstein is just an angry descent into madness and ruin, and like boring. That's where they've been for like the entire second half of the book, and that's where they end, and it's unsatisfying. It doesn't feel like there's any stakes or tension to their fight against each other, because if either of them win, they're still unhappy. If either of them lose, they're still unhappy and unsatisfied. So like, there's nothing worth fighting for, there's nothing worth avoiding, all outcomes are bad, you know? The only satisfying resolution to a plotline of vengeance like this, in my opinion, is letting go of that vengeance and moving on and forgiving the other person. You know, like you would do in an enemies to lovers romance. And in thinking on it a little bit more, it's not so much like the romance that I crave, it's more just the relationship development between two characters that have this bombastic, dynamic, fraught relationship at the beginning. So like, I would also accept a bromance friendship plotline, but just like give me something where they're different at the end of the book than they are like at the midpoint, you know? Other than just more sad or dead. So like, hats off to our feminist queen, Mary Shelley, for writing something so entertaining, but also like, just wasn't for me, and I would give it 3 stars. So now that I've read these 2 books, one with a lot of readers and middling reviews, and one with very few readers and very positive reviews, which one did I like better? And it's really close because I kind of feel low 3 stars about both of them. Like, they were entertaining enough to read through, but like, in the end, they're just average good. I think I like Frankenstein a little bit better. But if we're trying to answer the question of like, which book is better, I think it depends on your type of reader. If you're looking for a truly tragic tale with a lot of wacky asides, Frankenstein's your go-to. If you're looking for a very slow, kind of political book with a teensy dash of fantasy and really cool world building, then Quiet Vengeance is the way to go. But neither of those are what I was looking for today. Thanks for watching. There's new videos on this channel on Frizzle Fridays.